Welcome to The Artist Within. I'm Casey Bell, your host, and today we talk to Colin Darke, a unique artist who can draw not only with his right hand, but as well with his left hand. Let's ask him some questions on his journey of being an artist. How did you find the artist within you? When and how, or did it find you?
I would say it found me. I have been obsessively drawing and creating art since I was probably five or six. I come from a family, so I'm an attorney also. And I come from a family of artists and attorneys.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of five, and I combine both, but my mom was always kind of a creator and exposed me to a lot of fine arts. And then I have an older sister. One of my older sisters is an artist also. And I just have a lot of memories of drawing and creating art with her. Our styles are very different, but both of us have always had a passion for creating. And it's just something that's always been a part of who I am. And really, I remember once in law school, there was a little period where I didn't create something for probably 6 months. And that was probably, the longest period in my entire life, because my undergrad is a Bachelor of Fine Arts and with an emphasis in watercolor painting. And so I created a lot every day. And I realized like art really helps me with my stress and feeling whole. And so like from that period forward, I just force myself, even if it's something little, like I have to draw and do something every day just to like really be true to who I am. So really since then I've been making sure I've been doing it every day. And then what you saw was kind of part of, with social media, I started making sure I was like videotaping and sharing videos of what I was doing every day, even if it's not perfect. Where with Instagram and Facebook, I used to really focus on ensuring whatever I created was perfect, which there's no such thing. And now, like videotaping it and just drawing what I find fun has been part of the process and very rewarding.
Cool. Two-part question. So technically, are you ambidextrous? And when did you find out you could draw with both hands technically at the same time?
So technically, yes. When I was, again, like going back to when I was 5 or 6, I didn't know what handed I was for a long time because I guess I was ambidextrous. And I had teachers try to like focus me on my right hand, but I was always pretty comfortable with my left hand. And so if I'm drawing with my right hand and it got tired, or if I'm painting with my right hand and I got tired, I would just switch to my left. And that was the same with like some handwriting or playing a particular sport, not really thinking anything of it. And then my probably back in this past November, my wife, we were commenting with my mom, who watches our kids sometimes, about how my youngest son, who's 6, keeps switching back and forth when he writes. And then my mom was like, oh yeah, Colin used to do that a lot too. And then she mentioned how when she was younger, like she would write, like she would switch off too. And then my wife was like, oh wow, that's amazing. I like wonder why you can't do it now. To me, I'm like, oh, I can do it. I can draw just as well with my left than my right. She didn't believe me. So then I started drawing, and then that's when I started posting it.
What advice would you give a artist who's struggling to follow their dreams, for whether it's fear or whether they don't have the support system?
Well, that is so. With social media, the support system's there and the audience is there. If you seek it out and don't put too much weight into any negativity, and you can find a lot of strong, helpful artists, because it's always a great community, but it is trying to find an art community that you can just share with. And then it's the, perfection is the enemy of good. And I fell into that, and I stumble into it still on occasion, where the most important thing is just creating and really understanding the benefits of, like, even if it's really bad, the more you create. And I love seeing other artists, and I try to make a point to give positive comments and support other artists as much as I can. But I love seeing when an artist starts and they're struggling because they have this idea of what, art should look like and what their art should look like and what's good and what's not. And they might give up, but then there's artists that they see that and they know that's part of the process, and they keep honing in on, like, what makes them comfortable in terms of different materials and different colors or different mediums. And if you're sticking to it and you just do something, with me, it was like really focusing and doing something day after day, because that's my passion. And your kind of your style and your ease and, control of what you're creating just keeps developing day in and day out. And the more you, like, see other artists and see what other artists are doing, the more you just kind of be inspired and just try different things. But it is just like not beating yourself up, trusting the process, and just doing it for the love of creation. And the more that, like, creating and creativity feeds creating and creativity. So you just have to push yourself, especially, like, if you're not inspired for a particular day. And I'm often not inspired in some of the drawings I do, like, early in the morning. Like, I'm not particularly inspired to do it, but, like, I push myself just to create something. And then I just start having fun with it. And it ends up, during the process, I get inspired to create more. And the other thing is to, like, it is therapeutic. And my sister, who I talked about earlier, Kelly Darke, she is a art therapist also. So she really studies and she helps people. She actually, I hired her personally to work with some of my kids, but then with where I work, to just teach, some processes and give people some tools, like, even if you're not a great artist, just to create something because it does help, like, process emotions and kind of hone in your thoughts, so you don't get too lost in, like, the stress or the busyness of the everyday. And discussing things with her, even before she was an art therapist, but definitely after. And we even started a podcast too, because we always have these, like, long, like, philosophical conversations, and they're like, oh, we should record this sometime. So we started, and the more we do that, and the more we kind of delve into, like, what art means to us and, like, how it helps us process things, I think it gives us renewed respect for, the process and the value in it. And even if you're not, like, a particularly great artist, like, no matter what, you're going to get tons of value out of it.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
ctdark.com. Whether it be art supplies, instructional art ebooks, or art and merchandise, Colin Darke has it for you. Go to ctdark.com for more information.
You're watching the artist. You're watching the artist within.
Check out Dark Ages Podcast, a brother and sister team of artists, Colin and Kelly, talking about their creative journey, business, and mental health. Dark Ages Podcast. Join us today.
We're back. Let's continue the conversation. Since you are a lawyer, and the entertainment and art business is filled with theft as far as plagiarism and things of that nature, and bad contracts, et cetera, when would you suggest an artist, when they're serious, they look into, if not necessarily full-time hiring a lawyer, at least considering talking to a lawyer when it comes to the business side of art?
A lot of times there'll be attorneys that will do it pro bono, which they won't charge you for, just kind of brainstorming. but researching in general, and there's some blogs out there I could even email to you afterwards that just have good content about knowing your rights. And a lot of it is just sticking up for your right, like the plagiarism and the stealing. It's, your work is copyrighted automatically once it's created. You don't have to file a copyright. So kind of stating that when you see it out there, and there are companies too that police your work. So there's a company out there that, like, if they see my work being published without attribution to me, they'll reach out to the person and kind of do a cease and desist. And then if you're doing commissioning work, like if your site has it where you're trying to you're open to having people commission work from you, I have a very detailed, and people could download the contract I have on my site and just use that as a template. Maybe I'll put a Word document up there too, but it's good to kind of detail expectations and when payments are due and everything. But I'll shoot you some blogs that I think would be helpful, but you might not have to reach out to an attorney. I think it's always good once you start trying to sell your work more and you start selling it more. But reading up on some of the core legal principles is always a good idea. Because it is, that's the other thing with our career. It is so much, you have to know, you have to be appreciative of all the legal aspects around it and all the marketing aspects of it. And that's all beyond just creating the art. And that sometimes the stuff and selling it and selling your story is beyond what's fun, but trying to make somewhat of a living out of it. You have to exercise those muscles, and you don't have to do it by yourself. There's other resources and other artists there that help. But it is, it's a constant learning and developing and really trying to find people that are helpful. I found on TikTok, there's a lot of artists that give free advice and free resources and free apps and stuff that they think you should download and that'll help with your marketing. I found that very helpful too.
And kind of off the subject, so what field or fields of law do you practice?
So I focus on banking law and compliance. It was one of those where in law school, I really had a thought that I was going to be in the arts and intellectual property, and I got a certificate in that. But all the jobs focused on patent protection and kind of people with engineering or tech background. So then, I fell into this other area of the law that then I started getting passionate about that because it was just constantly learning and pushing myself. So it's banking, and for the company I work for, I'm in compliance and just risk management.
So last question, dead or alive, which artist would you consider having lunch and dinner with, or lunch and conversation with? And what would you ask them, and why would you choose that particular artist?
Dead or alive? So S1E1 is a female artist. She's a woman artist that I just am constantly inspired by, street artists and performance artists. I've always loved her work, and she's got a strong voice. So I would love to pick her brain sometime, especially, just her process and how she kind of creates a community around herself of the people that help her and kind of help her tell her story. And then, you go with Leonardo da Vinci just because he's one of the greatest minds of all time. You gotta pick his brain and get some thoughts and tips and just see how his brain works.
Cool. Well, I thank you for your time. I appreciate this. Like I said, I'll edit it all out. And if you can, send me a brief bio,
Yep.
as well as if you have one, a headshot or a picture.
Yep.
And I would greatly appreciate the website you said.
Yeah. Of
And
course.
is that her artist name? Swoon?
Yeah.
Okay.
SWOON. I'll send you some links to her work too. It's just she's fascinating. And it's one of those where I felt when I was in getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts and like, you know, really focus on art, like the art world was really focused on conceptual art and the technical skills of like drawing and creating imagery that's recognizable was not valued that much. And she was someone, and then it was like the whole after college, I felt like the whole like street art movement kind of started really growing, and people seeing like the value of like artists that can create and like create these environments that are recognizable but still a little abstract. And she's someone that right away when I started seeing her work, I was just really drawn to it because it's technically really great and it's just something I've never seen before, and you can really recognize her hand in, you know, in the work. So she's just someone I'm fascinated by. I think she's probably my age too. So.
That's all for today on this episode of The Artist Within. We'll see you next time.